Andrew and Courtney Simpson, the couple without kids, have been married for over 10 years. They both wanted to have children, but they decided to wait until they were settled in their careers and could support a family on just one income. They were both in their 30s and were wealthy lawyers. Drew was a civil litigation attorney at a popular local firm, while Court specialized in contract law. They finally made enough money to go to their first American Bar Association National Convention. This was a big deal for them both. We were so excited on the way to the hotel where we had a table reserved for us. Our main topic of conversation was about starting a family. We both agreed that the time was right. She admitted she was worried about all the possibilities. Everything went wrong during the board of directors reception on Wednesday night. The evening started off well, with both of us enjoying the atmosphere and chatting with our lawyer friends. It was late in the evening after the formal part of the reception ended. Ed said, "Let's keep the party going," and everyone started drinking, dancing, and having loud conversations. Drew noticed that the vibe in the room was pretty chill, which was a good sign because it usually meant there would be a wild sex session later on. Courtney, who was always the life of the party, was being her usual flirty self. Drew, on the other hand, was his usual calm and collected self. It was rare to see a lawyer like him at a social event, but he usually kept to himself in the background. Drew actually liked people watching and checking out how they interacted. If someone started talking, Drew would jump right in. He didn't really start conversations with strangers on his own. When his wife ordered her fourth mojito of the night, Drew slyly ran his hand up her stockinged leg, feeling the warmth she was giving off. That night, he had spent way too much time dancing with different partners and couldn't wait to head back to the hotel room. When Drew finally got to the hotel, when he checked her out and saw there was nothing on her, he looked into his wife's sexy eyes and got excited. She had that seductive look in her eyes and he was ready to get it on right there in the club. She leaned in, showing off her thigh and chest, and whispered that she wanted to have fun that night. He felt the same and suggested they head to the room. They had never been there before, but they were both eager to explore. "Hey, did you see anyone you know in the city earlier?" Drew quickly looked around. "Nah, I don't think so." "Why, what's up?" she asked, with a glint in her eye. He was taken aback. It was clear she was hinting at something, but as a seasoned lawyer, he knew better than to show his true emotions. Drew couldn't figure out where this was all coming from. The only thing he could think of was his wife not being ready to have a baby, but she had just promised to. "Just do it." "I get it. But what about us?" She ignored his question. Even though she wasn't a trial lawyer, she knew how to interrogate witnesses and understood the importance of not letting the other side throw her off. She sighed and held his hand tightly. "Have I been a good wife in the 15 years we've been together? Have you ever doubted my love and dedication to you? We were exclusive in our first year. Just that one time, one incident. I know I flirt, but have you ever doubted me? Yo, when you saw me doing that, you probably thought she messed up big time by asking a question she didn't know the answer to. But actually, she already had it all figured out. Nah, there wasn't any mistake. I never doubted your commitment to our partnership until like 30 years ago. Why now?" Now he just accepted that it was gonna happen. It was crazy how chill she looked in the middle of a club with all the lights, loud music, and DJ blasting. Yo, there were like 200 lawyers all chillin' and happy, but they were talkin' normal like and catchin' every word. "I'm tellin' you, I'm ready to have a baby. I just need this weekend to myself, I earned it. Come Monday, I'm ditchin' my birth control pills to secure our future." She pushed his hand away, leaned back in her chair, and crossed her arms over her chest, showing off her huge cleavage as she ended the conversation. "I get it. Have you picked someone yet?" He already knew the answer to that. Her question, yes, she said quietly but firmly. "Okay, one last question, what are you willing to pay me? Don't act clueless with me, you're a contract lawyer, you know what compensation is. What are you proposing for me to consider? How much are you willing to dish out?" He was about to lose it, shocked by how quickly his life was unraveling. "Sweetheart, the only thing we care about here is your ego. I know this will hurt you, and I'll be dealing with it for the next 30 years. We're gonna make up for lost time. It's not about what we have, it's about spending time together. It's Wednesday night and we don't have to leave until Saturday morning. I'll come back to our hotel room on Friday night and we'll start trying for a baby. Everything will be fine. We've been together for almost 15 years, over a decade of marriage. Our family will never fall apart. There were no kids laughing, no birthday parties, no first day of school, no graduations, no grandkid rides, no bouncing on our knees. She just straight up admitted to purposefully hurting her husband, like planning it out and everything. And she didn't even bat an eye. For some reason it didn't faze her. Okay, I'm heading to bed now. Not sure when I'll catch you. He walked off without looking back, ignoring her shouts behind him. But he didn't give a damn about what she was saying. That went smoother than I expected, Courtney thought to herself smugly. What was that about not knowing when I'll see you? She pushed the thought aside and focused on her target, locking in her concentration as she aimed. She looked him in the eyes and gave him a sexy smile as she got up and walked over to him. She couldn't remember his name, but she remembered how he rubbed his excited body against her thigh after they had just been dirty dancing. The crazy thing was, before she felt this guy against her leg, she never even thought about cheating on Drew. But then she made a bold decision that would completely shake up her life in ways she never could have imagined. As for Drew, he had no clue how he ended up back in the room. He vaguely remembered someone asking if he was okay, but that's about it. He was in the elevator, but his head was spinning and he was in a bit of shock from what just went down. Everything felt like a dream. Just moments ago, he was daydreaming about the amazing future he and Court would have together. But in the blink of an eye, his marriage was done. He sat on the bed, staring at the wall, not sure how long he was there until a plan started forming in his mind. He knew what he had to do and pushed himself to move forward. Home was just 3 steps away. 5 hours away, but Drew knew he had a couple of days to get everything done. He knew Courtney wouldn't be around for the next 48 hours, so he had plenty of time to finish up. First thing in the morning, he had to cancel their joint credit cards and report them as stolen. If he was lucky, a hotel maid would find the purse left in the room and take it without saying anything. Drew didn't plan on touching anything his ex-wife left behind in the room. He figured if the maid took it, it wouldn't be his problem anymore. His wallet was safe until Tuesday at least. The divorce would be easy, no kids, no house, no shared property. They always kept their money separate and split expenses equally. They made about the same amount of money, so getting divorced was the easy part. Starting over was the hard part. Drew packed his bag right away, ready to leave. He thought about leaving a note, but he suddenly decided to switch things up. I walked into the hallway and made my way to the elevator. The automatic door shut with a loud beep, signaling the end of his old life. On his way to the lobby, he had a thought and decided to stop by the front desk to double-check everything was okay. My wife is waiting in the car, we have a family emergency and need to leave right away. We accidentally left the keys in the room. He watched as the front desk clerk deactivated the cards with a few taps on the keyboard. He couldn't help but grin as he walked outside, knowing the situation was under control. Courtney's divorce was coming up in a few days, 7 years later. You were chilling in a hotel restaurant, sipping on iced tea, waiting for your food. The seminar was pretty informative and looked like it would be a great learning experience for him and his family law firm. He noticed that the date on the newspaper on the old vinyl seat was almost exactly 7 years since his divorce. Time really flies. He didn't realize he said it out loud at first and felt a little embarrassed. He quickly looked around to see if anyone heard him. I heard him say he hadn't thought about Courtney in a while, but his divorce was pretty easy. The whole thing showed him how messed up the so-called no-fault system can be for the one who got screwed over. Honestly, the system is there because some people can't handle their own shit and act like little kids, causing chaos for the other person. So, it has to step in and sort things out for them. This is when that saying, nobody wins in a divorce, really hits home. But hey, that's just how it goes. Drew needed a push to start focusing on family law. He realized that most divorces happen because both people have already decided to split up. There aren't many arguments, and both sides just want to get it over with quickly and easily. Drew handled all the cases that came his way, but he really enjoyed dealing with the more interesting cases involving cheating. He suspected that some clients' spouses were trying to play games with him. Just as he was lost in thought, he heard a familiar voice say hi. "Drew, how are you?" He looked up and was amazed to see her. He couldn't have been more surprised if he had been smacked with a cattle prod. "Hello, court, believe it or not, I was just thinking of you. What are you doing at this family law seminar?" "I won't be attending. I'm here to discuss another problem. Can I sit down?" "Of course, I apologize," he motioned for her to sit. "I'm astonished to see you, so please excuse my manners." "Wow, I honestly don't know what to say." She sat up straight and spoke angrily. "You never. Drew, you never even bothered to talk to me. You ignored all my messages and didn't speak to anyone in my family, not even my mom who you used to get along with. You didn't even bother showing up to any of the court hearings. You just left without a word. After 15 years together, you couldn't even say, 'Screw you,' before running off. I came home on Monday evening and found divorce papers waiting for me on the porch. When I finally went inside, nothing in the apartment reminded me of you or our life together. Hey, I know you messed up our marriage with your selfish act, and I'm the bad guy now. If that's all you gotta say, just leave me be, Drew. I'm really sorry, just go away right now." We're in court and he's pissed off. Most of the people in the restaurant were now staring at them. She got up, crying, and stumbled away. Just then, the twins and their little sibling came running over to him, like they always do. His wife was right behind them, laughing and happy. Her smile disappeared when she saw his face. She then looked at Courtney, who was quickly walking away. "That's fair," Drew could only nod, busy with their 3 kids. His wife Celia left without saying anything else after Courtney. Drew watched as she caught up to Courtney and they started talking. They must have talked for at least 5 minutes, exchanging contact info. Celia hugged Courtney before they went their separate ways. Celia came back to the table and grabbed their youngest son. Drew could herd the twins into a corner. Drew's eyes and mouth were wide open when Celia sat back down. "She'll be visiting our house in a few weeks and you two will actually have a conversation. Don't say anything, just nod if you understand." Her tone didn't leave much room for argument, so he simply nodded and started dealing with the 2 small monsters on his lap who were now his whole world. Later that evening in their hotel room after the kids had fallen asleep, Celia looked at him and asked, "Do you have?" "Yo, man, when it comes to talking to her, I gotta admit, I was hesitant at first. For a while, I was too proud to reach out, but now I see there's nothing I need to say. Looking back, I'm actually glad I didn't give her the chance." "Wait, are you kidding me? This is real." "Damn, Celia, if I had let her talk to me back then, who knows what she would have said. Maybe it would have changed things. But then again, if that had happened, I wouldn't have met you or our 3 kids. I don't need to talk to her, and I have no regrets." She hugged and kissed her partner. "Do you know how to talk to a woman, babe? But the poor thing needs to talk to you, so the least you can do is sit and listen." "I will, but honestly, what's the point? All she will say is that she's sorry. If I ask why, she'll say she's not sure, and so on. But I will do it for you, and maybe it will help her find some peace." "But why should I care, Drew? Be nice." "Right now, maybe I can't quite explain it to you, but why not just let it all out to her for a few minutes when you see her? Maybe that's how we can finally move on from the past for you too. Maybe you're right, even before I met you, I knew that my life was better off without her. The divorce made me reevaluate my life and what really matters to me. Yeah, I went through the usual emotional pain that comes with a marriage falling apart, but that failure made me take a good hard look at myself, something I probably wouldn't have done otherwise." She was acting like a fool. Drew stopped to catch his breath and think. They say that our biggest successes can come from our biggest failures, and I totally agree. Working in family law now makes me way happier than working in civil law did before. Sometimes I feel like I'm really making a difference for people. Sure, I don't make as much money, drive a fancy car, or live in a waterfront condo, but I'm happier than ever." "What about her? Maybe you should ask her." "So, Celia asked me what's the deal and I gotta say, I have 0 regrets about where I'm at in life right now." But then, out of nowhere, he kinda paused and said in a hushed tone, "Well, maybe I do have one regret. I should have talked to her mom. She was a really sweet lady who I knew cared about me, and I liked her because both my folks are gone. She was like a second mom to me, you know. I left without saying anything to her. Celia didn't have much to add. She was hoping this chat would help Drew as much as it helped Courtney. She was worried about whether she was putting this on Drew and if it would just bring back memories he didn't care about anymore. Could she prevent it? Turns out, Celia didn't have to do anything because the meeting never happened. Courtney was supposed to show up in town the night before. Celia's phone rang after midnight and she was scared to pick it up in case it was bad news. But she answered anyway, and it was Courtney's mom, Angela Jones, on the other end, all upset. She said, "Celia, I need to talk to Andrew, Drew." Andrew was woken up by the phone ringing, so Celia gave him the phone and said, "This is for you, Andrew. It's Angela. Courtney took her own life on Friday afternoon." After that, there were sobs from someone in a lot of pain. "I'm really sorry, Mom. I don't know what to say. Oh God, now it's my fault." Drew was also crying but couldn't find any words. Celia heard everything, held onto her husband, and was now crying openly. She felt like she was partly to blame. "Andrew, it's not your fault. She had a lot of issues that she brought on herself. Hey, after the divorce, you didn't know much about her. She left you a letter that I kept hidden from the police. Only you and I know about it. What do you want me to do with it, Andrew? Just hold on to it for now and I'll figure it out. Can you do that?" "Sure thing, Andrew. I need you by my side. Can you come?" "I'll be there ASAP, ma'am. I'm thinking of bringing my whole family to meet you. I think you'll like them. I'll give you a call tomorrow to make a plan." "Hey, you shouldn't be alone right now." "Yeah, my friend Joyce is staying with me. I'm looking forward to meeting your family. I'll catch up with you tomorrow." The call got cut off. Courtney's memorial service happened a week later on a chilly but sunny autumn day. Just like he said, Drew and his family showed up. Only a few people showed up despite Courtney being a top-notch lawyer. She didn't have any real friends. She was cremated and her ashes will be scattered in the park where she and Drew used to hang out when they were dating. Angela said it was the best time of Courtney's life. She felt really sad that she caused her daughter to leave because she loved the three girls so much. By the end of the week, the girls were calling her Granny Angie. Angela told Drew about all the stuff that happened to Courtney after he left, and he was shocked to hear about her reckless behavior, drug use, and mental health issues after the divorce. Angela even explained why Courtney stayed. So, Drew's girl was staying at the same hotel as him when she ditched him for two guys she met at a club. She was MIA for over a week and came back with bruises. Angela said this kind of thing happened often with her. Courtney was also about to lose his business partner because of one stupid move that messed up his life. Drew's fam was supposed to come back the night before, after he and Celia had a deep convo and figured some stuff out. The next morning, Drew took Angela with him instead of Celia. Crazy, right? "Hey Mom, Celia, and I think it's time for you to move in with us. There's nothing holding you back here anymore. You don't have to decide right away, but please really think about it. We'd love to have you with us and we'll help with the move. Just take some time to consider it, all right?" "Oh dear, that's so sweet of you. I promise to think about it carefully, but I'm going to miss her so much." Asterisk bursts into tears again, and Drew holds her. Hey, while she was trying to calm down, he just went ahead and said we need to talk about the letter. I think the best thing to do is just chuck it unopened into the fireplace. Yeah, I know it's for Andrew, but I'll never read it. If you give it to me, I'll just burn it. But hey, I wanted to give you the chance to keep it if you want. I don't know about you, but I want to remember Courtney the way she was before the divorce. Your memory should be from that time too, and I'm worried that if we read the letter, we'll just end up remembering stuff we shouldn't. I don't want anything to do with her after the divorce. If you want to read that mean letter, I'll give it to you, but just promise me you won't ever bring it up to me." Angela was shocked by what he said. We were starting to understand Andrew's thinking. She really just wanted to remember her daughter how she was before everything went wrong. Maybe the letter has some real apology and recognition of how hard her choices were, or maybe it's just more pain. Andrew had warned her about it. His experience with Courtney a few weeks ago. What if Courtney just had more anger and guilt to unleash on Andrew? Courtney's mental state hasn't been the greatest, especially after facing Andrew. Angela was torn. Here's the next chapter. I never thought my life could fall apart in just one moment. I trusted and loved her, and then I saw her with him in our own bed at home. Her betrayal felt like a stab in my heart. I felt pure rage flowing through me. She chose a coward, and now he's scared of me. This is more than just a story. Alright, this is a story about cheating. My whole world got messed up and now it's their turn to deal with the fallout. They wanted to sneak around, well now they're gonna have to deal with everyone knowing. Today started off normal, just like any other day, until 5:30 p.m. when shit hit the fan. I woke up at 7 a.m. I helped the kids get ready for school, made breakfast, and packed their lunches. Tracy, who was dead tired from her tennis game the night before, had to wake up to make sure James and Maddie caught the school bus on time. After saying goodbye to my kids, I left for work at 8 o'clock. I'm in charge of a group that handles the town's public projects. I finished work around 5 o'clock, like usual. I needed some cash for the weekend, so I went to the ATM. It took my card but didn't give me any money. There were no warnings or messages, it just kept my card. Looking back, it might have been a glitch. Oops, I messed up trying to use my credit card to get some cash. I was trying to buy something cool for Maddie's birthday on Sunday, but the stupid machine kept my card after the bank closed. So, I had to head back home. When I got there, I saw Tracy's car wasn't in the driveway. I freaked out and ran to the front door, worried that Mom had left the kids home alone again. I told her how much I hated when she did that and asked her to let me know if she had any plans after school so I could come back early. As I was about to open the door, I heard, "Yo," someone yelled out, "Mr. David Brown." I glanced around and said yeah. Some dude in his 40s gave me a yellow envelope stamped, slugged in and pike, and said, "You've been served." I was hella confused as he left. When I went inside, it felt mad empty. 2 minutes later, I realized my fam and all their stuff were gone, no explanation. Just a yellow envelope on the table. I tore it open and saw it was about a divorce, telling me to sign it. Sticky labels, I didn't even bother to read the next paper before moving on. This one was a bit confusing. Turns out I have 2 months to leave my house before it's sold. What a shock. The third paper was just as puzzling. Some guy named Michael Smith wants to adopt my kids. Seriously, what's happening? The last paper was clear though. The court order says I have to stay at least 200 meters away from my wife, kids, and Mr. Smith's house at 12 Riverview Drive. I was totally blown away by the size of this bombshell. It felt like my whole world was crashing down. But what I didn't know then was that the bombshell was too big for my brain to process all at once. At first, I was so shocked that I couldn't even think straight. But eventually, it hit me: my wife had left me for some random dude. She took our kids and wanted him to adopt them. She closed our bank accounts and was planning to sell our house to get the cash. Can you believe it? So, my buddy was Michael Smith, who lived over on Riverview Drive. I was feeling pretty dumb because I had no clue Tracy had been scheming this for a while. I mean, I knew Tracy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, so I must have been a total idiot. Looking back, there were probably some signs I missed. Tracy had been acting weird about 6 months back, but when I brought it up, she seemed to straighten out. And our relationship, which had been on the rocks, suddenly got a whole lot better. Actually, she came back to me. Man, Tracy is a whole new woman now. She used to be so cautious and reserved, but now she's all confident and wild. Our recent bedroom activities have been amazing, and I can't help but wonder if she's done this stuff with Mr. Smith before. It's freaking me out to think about it though, because that's just not like Tracy. She always wanted to be adventurous, but her strict upbringing held her back. It's sad that she lost respect for me 6 months ago, but now I'm starting to see her in a whole new light. Tracy likes to spice things up in the bedroom and try new stuff. Smith was getting bored with Tracy always sticking to missionary position. Hold on, Dave, you're gonna need your sense of humor for what's about to happen. I was still shocked as I figured out my next move. People who haven't seen my latest psych evaluation might be surprised. My boss had this new idea to have all his top employees checked out. I felt relieved when the report showed Mr. Brown wasn't always following the rules. It made me feel like a rebel. During my annual review, my boss gave me mad props for always prioritizing results and just using rules as a general guide to get shit done. He said whenever there's a tough job, he always turns to me. He even jots down in his diary how he thinks I'll handle it and when I'll finish. It was nice to hear, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter 'cause I couldn't move up any higher in the company. So, basically, I had to drop out of engineering school because I had to take care of my wife and kids. But now, after some time, I'm ready to find a better job. I parked near 12 Riverview Drive, where Tracy's car was parked too, but I didn't see anyone around. Smith lived in a nice neighborhood, sharing a big house with some other people. His name sounded familiar. Could he be the guy from those TV ads for the supermarket in town? So, this guy, he totally grabbed power of the place a couple years back by force or something. And then, out of nowhere, he shows up again driving off in his car. I was like, whoa, it's that dude who helped me out before. And then I found this yellow envelope with divorce papers inside. Tracy was asking for everything: the house, the cars, the cash, even child support. Talk about wanting it all, right? I noticed that she didn't want me to see the kids at all. Tracy always had to come out on top. She loved winning and beating her opponents. Her behavior in that petition was so typical of her. I was thinking about this when the door opened again half an hour later. A fancy lady in her early 40s was pushed out onto the porch. She watched as a man in his 50s put a big suitcase next to her, then went back inside and locked the door, holding onto a yellow package she knew. She just stood there for a while. She eventually rolled up with her bag to the gate and came walking towards me. Her face looked just as confused as I felt inside. When she got to my car, I walked in front of her. She stopped a little ways away, holding her mail and dragging her bag, looking at me with tears in her eyes. She seemed lost. When I showed her my envelope, I said the same thing. She looked at mine, then at hers, and started crying uncontrollably. She stood there while I put her suitcase in my car and opened the door for her. Then I drove off. I made a few turns to make sure no one was following us. It was weird feeling both protective and calm knowing she was in danger. Her eyes were red from crying, but still beautiful. I took a deep breath and decided to break the ice. Hey, I'm Dave. I think my wife might know your husband. She slowly turned to me with a weak smile, even though she was clearly upset. There was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I'm Wendy. Is Tracy your wife? I nodded in response. I saw them together last month. I thought we were working things out then. Tonight she started crying again. I waited for her to calm down. Tracy's betrayal didn't shock me as much as I thought. Can I give you a ride home or somewhere else? Do you have any family or friends? I don't have any family here, and Michael made my friends stay away from me. Are you hungry? She shook her head. I only had less than $50 in my wallet. I took Wendy to a cheap restaurant I knew, and we went in. In short, we talked about our life stories. I was 32 when I got married in my second year of university. The following year, so me and Tracy ran into a problem when the condoms didn't work right. Tracy didn't want to get rid of the baby, so I dropped out of school to help out our new fam. Tracy didn't have a job, but I thought we were good together. Her laziness kinda bugged me, but I get it, people are all about themselves nowadays. But what really got to me was how Tracy acted like a supermom in public, but at home she was all about herself. I didn't want to start a fight about it though. I always made sure to show love to my kids, whether we were out and about or just chilling at home. After my parents passed away, my family became everything to me. Wendy, who's 41, had a tough time growing up. Her mom left her and her dad died from stress. She ended up marrying this guy Michael Smith, who was older than her. They never had any kids because Michael refused to get a fertility test, blaming Wendy and pointing out his successful siblings. Wendy ended up using her inheritance to help grow Michael's business. She was told to check her bank cards at an ATM near some sketchy area, where it was obvious that the attackers had planned their move. After we pulled off the heist, we were totally confused and didn't know what to do next. Looking back, it was kind of a relief to focus on someone else's problems during the tough time. Wendy wasn't ready to think about the future, so I suggested she crash at my huge, empty house until she figured things out. I made it clear that I was just trying to help by offering her a place to stay, with no ulterior motives. We got back to my place and I helped her settle into the guest room. Later, we had some wine together and I opened up about my worry that I don't get enough time with my kids. She comforted me by holding my hand and sympathizing with the struggles I faced growing up. When we talked about our shared concerns, it felt like a therapy session. After we finished a bottle of wine, we came up with some helpful solutions. It seemed like they were trying to keep us down and prevent us from getting legal help. Tracy was clearly set on winning, while Wendy, as usual, wouldn't give in. We decided to split everything fair and square after the divorce, but we couldn't come to a friendly agreement. She seemed cool at first, like she could be there for me emotionally. We both went to our own corners, but at least we had each other. The next day, we made it a priority to lift each other's spirits so we wouldn't get too overwhelmed by our new situation. Whenever she was feeling low, I'd bust out some funny stories to cheer her up. And when I was down, she'd crack me up. Even though she was gorgeous, she was actually kind of shy, which just added to her charm. We had to save up all our cash, cause we had no other income. We made do with what we had in the kitchen and were careful with our spending. We thought we could stretch it out for a few weeks. Surprisingly, shopping on a tight budget turned out to be kind of fun for us. It was a big adjustment for Wendy, who's been living the high life since she got hitched. Mr. Smith and I talked about our future plans, but we changed the subject when it got too depressing. Saturday night, we watched Me and Wendy were chilling watching a movie together when the next day, John and Beth from Tracy's family showed up out of the blue. I made them some coffee and we had a nice chat. Beth and I always got on well, and I had a feeling she's had a thing for me for a while now. Wendy's been on her own since her husband ran off with his secretary. The next morning, she came into the kitchen in her robe while we were making coffee. She said sorry and left, looking a bit flustered about her outfit. John looked at me with a raised eyebrow. "Hey, Dad, it's the woman who your daughter is living with. He kicked her out last Friday, the same day we met. I invited her to stay with me because she didn't have anywhere else to go. Your kid is causing trouble for more people than just me." "Sorry, Dave." Tracy's mom wanted to come too, but she was too embarrassed. "We know about Tracy's behavior towards you and I'm really mad at her. I almost told her to get lost, but you know how it is with the grandkids and all. Thanks for sharing your feelings, Dad. I don't get why she's pulling all this drama. I know she's trying to win by taking all the money in the house, but I don't see why." I tried to explain it to my dad, who looked shocked by what I was saying. His eyes were wide open, like he was hearing about the problem for the first time. He asked for more details, trying to understand. "All my bank accounts have been shut down and now I'm broke. She gave me papers to leave." When I told John about the situation at the house and how I'm not allowed to see my kids, he was shocked. He couldn't even look at me. "I feel sorry for you, Dave," he said. "She's pretty cold-hearted. But I can help you out with something. Yesterday, she told her mom and me why she wants to leave. Basically, she thinks you've reached your limit and she wants more. She thinks being with a rich guy will give her everything she wants. He's over 50 and the way she talks about him makes it seem like she doesn't even like him. If I were him, I would. Be careful, I think she's gonna marry him and then take all his money. I have no idea how to raise a kid like her father, that's crazy. I had to drop out of college because she chose to keep her first child. He said if I kept going, I'd be in a bad situation." John just shrugged in response. "Why did you bring the kids, Dad? We both know she's not the motherly type. Why not just take the money and leave me with the kids?" "I don't know, son," he said. Beth was totally shocked by her dad's comment, but she didn't say anything, looking super embarrassed. John said sorry, shook my hand, and then left. I asked him to give my daughter a birthday hug for me. Beth hugged me and said she'd be back in an hour. It was all pretty interesting. Wendy and I were having brunch when Tracy's two pals showed up last night. They saw Tracy with an older dude in a restaurant and were curious. Wendy told her story and I gave my 2 cents. They were bothered by Tracy's behavior. They didn't get why she left with the kids. They must have peeped Tracy's fake nice act when others were around. We had just finished telling the story when Tracy's pal showed up. We told it again to include her. She was just as shocked as everyone else. Before we could finish, Beth came back. She pulled me to the side and gave me an envelope with 1000. Here, Dave, consider it a loan to make up for my bad behavior, Beth explained. No, please take it, I said firmly, feeling proud. I struggled to accept it. I got the package that I really needed. I want to thank her for that. Also, I gotta tell you that Dad didn't tell you everything. Tracy came by yesterday and dropped off the kids with us. She spilled all the tea to us. I managed to get the rest of the scoop from her later on. Dave, I gotta warn you, she's in a tough spot. She wants both the cash and the house. He's planning to use the money to convince you to agree to a divorce and let him adopt the kids. He ain't got no kids of his own and hopes someone will get his money. His ex-wife convinced him she wants a baby with him after the divorce. He'll leave a mark and she'll go back to her old life eventually. Just be patient, Dave. I think she'll stop caring for Jimmy and Maddie and give them back to you. I saw Beth's shocked expression, but her words, even though cold, made sense. He's got a hot young wife, so I get why he might be into Tracy, even if she. The idea of having a wife who could easily have kids was pretty appealing to him. But I was shocked when Beth told me that Tracy had serious health issues during her pregnancies. She had to have a C-section for her second child and decided to get her uterus removed at the same time. She didn't even tell her family or her new lover about it. It just goes to show how sneaky my wife can be. How did Tracy seem when she talked to you, Beth? I'm thinking about how she feels about hurting you, Dave. She looks guilty and tried to hide it, but I could see that it was really bothering her. She knows she's hurting a decent guy, but that won't change how she acts. Beth, why are you helping me? It's the right thing to do, Dave. My sister used to bully me when we were kids, so what she's doing to you is not okay. It really upsets me. I felt left alone before, so I get what you're going through. You helped me when I messed up, so now it's my turn to help you. Hey Tracy, I want to help you out, Dave. I really care about you and can't stand to see you being treated poorly. Thanks, Beth. I'm at a loss for words, I can't make any promises, but don't worry, I'm not trying to date you. That would be really strange. Plus, I've been seeing someone for about a month now, and things are going well. I'm happy for you, Beth, you've always been my favorite family member. I hope this relationship lasts. Thanks, Dave. I promise to assist you in any way I can. Think of me as your special assistant. Beth left after that. I went back to Wendy and our buddies at the end of the day. We told 3 more friends over the phone about what happened. Their kind words and support made us feel a lot better. We talked about what could happen next after we cooked dinner together. Before we started cooking, I took $400 from Beth's money and gave Wendy $200. Then I showed her where the rest of the money was kept in a cookie jar. Beth also gave me some money to help me until my next paycheck. I told Wendy what Beth had said earlier, and she wasn't surprised. Her marriage was on the rocks because they couldn't have kids. Wendy noticed that I was always in a bad mood at this time. I realized it was 8:30 p.m. and I usually read bedtime stories to my kids around this time. When my wife asked me what we should do, I saw a tear in her eye. I told her that my main focus is taking care of our children. I can't leave them with such untrustworthy people. We need to find a way to help them, even if it means getting the money back. I'm not sure if I want revenge, but I can't stand the idea of it. Letting them off the hook, what do you think, Wendy? Wendy's face turned serious. If he had just talked to me about getting a divorce and splitting our stuff evenly, I would have been fine. But now I'm embarrassed. I really want to see him pay, Dave, she said firmly. I nodded to show her I was on board. All right, we know what we want. Let's figure out how to make it happen. We spent the next few hours brainstorming ways to raise money for lawyers. So many options to pick from, but none of them brought us joy in our conversations. We followed the rules and talked about fair ways to make progress, but it didn't help us move forward. Feeling stuck, I turned to Wendy for advice on money. Andrew and Courtney Simpson, the couple without kids, had been married happily for over a decade. They both wanted children, but decided to wait until they were settled in their careers and could support a family on one income. They were both in their 30s and well-off lawyers. Drew worked in civil law. So, there's this lawyer dude who works at a popular firm in their town, specializing in contract law. They finally saved up enough cash to go to their first American Bar Association National Convention. They were both hyped for it during the long drive to the hotel where they had a table booked. Their main convo topic was about having a kid. They both agreed that it was time. But the lawyer chick admitted she was worried about how things could go wrong. So, basically, at the board of directors party on Wednesday night, things were going pretty well. We were all having a good time, chilling with our fellow lawyers. But once the formal part of the reception was over, things got wild. There was more drinking, dancing, and loud chatting. Drew noticed that everyone was in a playful mood, which usually meant a crazy sex sesh at the end of the night. Courtney, who is a total babe, was there being her usual lively self. The vibe tonight was a bit sneaky and flirty, with Drew being the calm and quiet one for once. It's not typical for a lawyer like him to be at social events, usually he's just blending in and observing. He likes watching people and how they interact, only jumping into conversations when someone else starts them. When his wife ordered her fourth mojito, Drew slid his hand up her thigh, feeling the warmth. He was oozing with confidence that evening after spending way too much time on the dance floor with different partners. He couldn't wait to get back to the hotel room when Drew showed up at what he liked to call his place. But when he looked at her, he realized she had nothing left on. As he gazed into his wife's dark green eyes, his eyes lit up. She had that sexy, smoky look in her eyes, and he was ready to take her right then and there. In the club, she leaned forward, showing off a good amount of her thigh and cleavage. She let out a low, approving sound. "Whisper before we start having a good time tonight, babe. Keep eye contact, I can tell you're feeling it too, honey. Let's go to the room and check it out, we've never been to this city before. Do you see anyone you know?" Drew glanced around reflexively. "Nah, I don't think so." "Why?" "I just want to have a good time tonight." She said it with a strong emphasis on the I. He was shocked. He obviously knew what she meant, but being a seasoned lawyer, he knew better than to show his true feelings. Drew couldn't. "You know, I get where this is all coming from." The only thing that seemed off to him was his wife not wanting to have a kid, but now she's on board. "I get it, but what about us?" he asked, but she dodged the question. Even though she wasn't a lawyer, she knew how to ask the right questions and not let anyone throw her off track. She sighed and held his hand tight. "Have I been a good wife in the 15 years we've been together? Have you ever thought otherwise? I had doubts about my love and commitment to you, and we decided to only be with each other in our first year together. There was just one incident that made me question things. I admit that I flirt, but have you ever doubted me when you saw me doing it? Maybe you thought I made a rookie mistake by asking a question I already knew the answer to, but in reality, there was no mistake. No, there were no doubts about your dedication to us until about 30 years ago. Why are you questioning it now?" He quit. He just accepted that it was gonna happen. It was crazy how calm she looked in the middle of a packed nightclub with loud music blasting and a DJ surrounded by a bunch of lawyers. Despite all that, they were talking in normal voices and not missing a single word from each other. She told him she's ready to have a baby and she just wants this weekend to herself. She said she deserved it and on Monday she's gonna stop taking her birth control pills to secure our future. She pushed his hand away, leaned back in her chair, and crossed her arms over her chest, highlighting her huge boobs as she wrapped up the conversation. "I get it, have you picked someone already?" He knew she knew the answer to his question. "Yes," she said quietly but firmly. "Okay, one last question, what's the pay you're offering? What's the compensation? Don't act clueless, you're a contract lawyer, you know what compensation means. What are you proposing for me to consider? How much are you willing to shell out?" He was on the verge of losing it, shocked at how quickly his life was unraveling. "Hey babe, the only thing we care about here is your ego. I know it's gonna hurt you, but I'll spend the next 30 years making it right. It's not about our possessions. It's Wednesday night and we don't have to leave until Saturday morning. I'll be back at our hotel room on Friday night and we can start trying for a baby. Everything will be fine. We've been together for almost 15 years, over a decade of marriage. Our family falling apart won't be the end of us. That never happened. The kids weren't laughing, no birthday parties, no first day of school, no graduations, no rides for the grandkids, no bouncing on our knees. She just confessed to purposely hurting her husband, like, planning it out and everything. And she didn't even flinch. For some reason it didn't bother her. "All right, I'm going to bed. Not sure when I'll see you." He walked away without looking back. He heard her yelling after him, but he didn't care about what she said. That went smoother than I thought. Courtney was feeling pretty pleased with herself, thinking, what was that? I'm not sure when I'll see you. She stopped thinking about it and focused on her goal. She looked him in the eyes, gave him a seductive smile, and got up to go towards him. She couldn't remember his name, but she did recall how he rubbed his excited body against her thigh after they had been dancing dirty. The crazy thing was, she had never even thought about being unfaithful until she felt him against her leg. Drew's girl dropped a bombshell that totally rocked his world. He was left dumbfounded, with no clue how he ended up back in his room. He vaguely recalled someone checking in on him in the elevator, but his mind was spinning and he was in shock from the whole situation. It all felt like a dream just moments ago. He was daydreaming about the future with his girl Court, and in the blink of an eye, his marriage was done. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall in a daze until a plan started to form in his head. He knew what he had to do and pushed himself to keep going. Ward's house was only 3.5 hours away, but Drew knew he had a few days to get everything done. Did you know that Courtney won't be around for the next 48 hours? He had plenty of time to finish what needed to be done. Did you know that the first thing he had to do in the morning was report their shared credit cards as stolen? If he was lucky, a hotel maid would find the purse left in the room and take it without saying anything. Drew had no intention of touching it. So basically, the dude figured that if the hotel maid swiped his ex-wife's stuff, he'd have until Tuesday before she noticed. Their divorce was gonna be a piece of cake since they didn't have any kids, property, or joint finances. They both made the same amount of money and split expenses evenly, so splitting up was easy peasy. Starting over, though, was gonna be a whole different story. Drew wasted no time and started packing his bags to bounce. He stood at the door for a moment, debating whether to leave a note, but then he thought better of it. I walked out into the hallway and made my way to the elevator. The sound of the door closing echoed down the hall, signaling the end of his old life. On his way to the lobby, he had a sudden thought and stopped at the front desk to make sure everything was okay. "My wife's in the car, we have a family emergency and need to leave right away." "We left the keys in the room," he explained. The clerk quickly typed something on the computer, and he realized the cards were deactivated. Once he turned off his phone, he couldn't help but grin as he walked outside, knowing how much trouble Courtney would be in a few days later. 7 years later, he was chilling in a hotel restaurant, sipping iced tea and waiting for his food. The seminar had been really helpful and he was excited for his family law firm to learn from it. He noticed the date on the newspaper on the old seat was almost exactly 7 years since his divorce was finalized. Time really flies, he hadn't even realized he said it out loud. Out loud and feeling kinda embarrassed, he looked around to see if anyone caught him. He hadn't thought about Courtney in a while, but his divorce was pretty straightforward. The whole thing taught him how messed up the so-called no-fault system can be for the one who got screwed over. Honestly, the system only exists because some people can't deal with their own crap and act like children, causing chaos for the other person. So, the system has to step in and fix things for them. These are the times when the old system. You know that saying, no one wins in a divorce? Well, that totally rang true for Drew. It made him realize he wanted to focus on family law. He saw that nowadays, most divorces happen because both people have already made their decision. There aren't many arguments, and they just want to get it over with quickly and painlessly. Drew handled all sorts of cases, but he really enjoyed the juicy ones involving cheating spouses, where he felt like his client was trying to get some payback. Yo, his thoughts got cut off by a voice he knew. "Hey Drew, how's it going?" He glanced up and was shocked to see her. He couldn't believe his eyes, like he got hit with a cattle prod. "Hey Court, believe it or not, I was just thinking about you. What are you doing at this family law seminar?" "I wasn't planning on coming. I'm here to talk about another issue. Can I join you?" "Of course, sorry about that." He gestured for her to sit. "I'm so surprised to see you here, excuse my manners." "Wow, I honestly don't know what to say." She sat up straight and was like, "Drew, you never even talked to me. You never replied to any of my texts. You didn't talk to anyone in my family, not even my mom who you knew I loved. You didn't even bother showing up to any of the court hearings. You just left. I had nothing to say to you. We were together for 15 years and you couldn't even say, "Screw you," before running off. I went up to our front porch on Monday night and got served with divorce papers before I could even step foot in the house. And when I finally did get inside, there was nothing. The apartment made me think of you and our marriage. I know you messed up our marriage with a selfish act, and I'm the one who's messed up. If that's all you have to say, just leave me alone, Drew. I'm really sorry, just go away right now. We're in court, and he was really angry. Most of the restaurant was staring at them. She got up, crying, and stumbled away. Just then, the chaos hit. It was the noisy twins and their little sibling, running towards him at full speed. His wife was walking behind them, laughing and happy, but her smile disappeared when she saw his face. She then looked at Courtney, who was quickly walking away. That was her prerogative. Drew could only nod, busy with their 3 kids. Without saying anything else, his wife Celia took off after Courtney. Drew watched as she caught up to Courtney and they had a conversation that ended with Celia helping Courtney sit down. They must have talked for at least 5 minutes, exchanging contact info before Celia returned. Hugged Courtney before we split up, Celia went back to the table and grabbed their youngest so Drew could take care of the twins in the corner. Drew's eyes and mouth were wide open when Celia sat back down. She'll be coming to our house in a few weeks and you two will have a conversation, actually talk. Don't say anything, just nod if you understand. Her tone didn't leave much room for argument, so he just nodded and started dealing with the 2 little monsters on his lap who were now his whole world. Later that evening in their hotel room after the 3 of them parted ways. Musketeers passed out, Celia looked at him and said, "Got something to say or ask?" He took a deep breath and said, "At first, I wanted to, but maybe my ego wouldn't let me. Now, I have nothing to ask for and I'm glad I didn't let her have the chance back then." "Are you kidding?" Celia asked. "This can't be real." "It's serious, Celia," he replied. "If I had let her talk to me back then, she might have said something that made me think twice. But it didn't happen. If it wasn't for meeting you, we wouldn't have our 3 kids. And I ain't got no need to talk to her, no regrets either." She hugged and kissed her husband. "You know how to sweet-talk a lady, but that poor woman just needs someone to listen to her. I'll do it, but what's the point? All she'll say is sorry and she ain't even sure why. But I'll do it all for you, maybe it'll help her find some peace." Yo, why should I even give a damn, man? Drew should just be nice right now, you know. I can't really explain it to you, but maybe you should just let out all your frustrations on her for a bit when you see her. Maybe that's how we can finally move on from the past. Maybe you're onto something. Even before I met you, I knew my life was better off without her. The divorce made me reevaluate what truly matters to me. Yeah, I went through all the typical emotional crap when my marriage fell apart, but that failure forced me to really take a hard look at things. I wouldn't have done what I did if she hadn't acted so stupid. Drew took a moment to think and catch his breath. They say that our biggest successes can come from our biggest mistakes, and I completely agree. In my case, working in family law today makes me much happier than working in civil law did before. Sometimes I feel like I'm actually making a difference and helping people. Sure, I don't make as much money, drive a fancy car, or live in a waterfront condo, but I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. So, what's the deal with her? Maybe you should just ask her straight up. I mean, Celia, I have no regrets about where I'm at in life right now. But, I gotta admit, I do have one regret. I should have talked to her mom. She was a sweet lady who I knew cared about me. With my own parents gone, she was like a second mom to me. I left without saying a word to her. Celia didn't have much else to add. She was probably hoping for a different outcome from our meeting. It was good for Drew and Courtney, but now Courtney was worried she was just dumping her problems on Drew. Would it just bring back memories he didn't care about anymore? Could she prevent it? Turns out, Celia didn't have to do anything because the meeting never happened. Courtney was supposed to come into town the night before. Celia's phone rang after midnight, and she was scared to answer in case it was bad news. But she picked up anyway, and it was a woman who seemed really upset. "Celia, this is..." "Hey, it's Angela Jones, Courtney's mom. I need to talk to Andrew. Drew was woken up by a phone call, and Celia handed him the phone saying, "This is for you, Andrew. It's Angela. Courtney took her own life on Friday afternoon." The news was followed by sobs from someone in extreme pain. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know what to say." "Oh God, it's my fault," Andrew said, also crying. Celia, who had heard everything, held onto her husband and started crying too. She felt like she was partly to blame. "Hey, don't blame yourself for what happened with Andrew. She had a lot of problems that she caused herself after the divorce. You didn't know all the details about her. She left you a sealed letter, which I kept hidden from the cops. Only you and I know about it. What do you want me to do with it, Andrew? Just hold on to it for now and I'll figure it out. Can you do that?" "Of course, Andrew. I need you by my side. Can you come?" "I'll be there as soon as I can, ma'am. I'm thinking of bringing my whole family. I want you to meet them. I know. You'll have a good time with them. I'll hit you up tomorrow to make a plan. Is there someone with you right now? You shouldn't be alone." "Yeah, my friend Joyce is crashing at my place. I'm looking forward to meeting your family. I'll catch you tomorrow." The call got cut off. Courtney's memorial happened a week later on a chilly but nice autumn day, and true to his word, Drew and his family showed up. Only a handful of people showed up to the service, even though Courtney was an amazing lawyer. She was cremated and her ashes were going to be scattered. Angela was telling Drew about the park where she and him used to hang out when they were dating. She said it was the best time of Courtney's life. Angela felt really sad that she had lost her daughter because of her own mistakes. She quickly grew to love Celia and the three girls. By the end of the week, the girls were calling her Granny Angie. Angela told Drew about all the crazy stuff Courtney had been up to since he left, and he was shocked to hear about her reckless behavior and drug use. So after the divorce, Courtney went through some serious mental health issues. She even spilled the beans on why she was staying in the same hotel as Drew. Turns out she ditched him and ran off with two dudes she met at a club, and was MIA for over a week. When she came back, she had bruises all over her body. Angela said this kind of stuff wasn't uncommon for Courtney. Plus, she was about to lose her professional partnership. It's crazy how one bad choice can mess up your whole life like that. Drew's fam was supposed to come back home the night before all this drama went down with Celia. So, after our chat, Drew pulled Angela aside the next morning while Celia kept the ladies entertained. "Mom, we gotta talk about some stuff first," he said. "Celia and I think you should move in with us. There's nothing holding you back here anymore. You don't have to decide right this second, but we really think you should think about it. We'd love to have you with us if you want. And don't worry, we'll help you move and everything. Just think about it, okay?" "Oh, wow, that's really sweet of you," she replied. "I promise I'll give it some serious thought. But man, I'm gonna miss her so much." She started crying again and Drew held her as she tried to calm down. He said, "We need to talk about that letter. I think the best move is to just toss it unopened into the fireplace. That letter is meant for Andrew, but I'll never read it. If you give it to me, I'll just burn it. But I want to offer you the chance to keep it. I don't know about you, but I want to remember Courtney the way she was before the divorce. Your memory should be from that time too, and I'm worried that if we read the letter, we'll remember her how she was after the divorce. I don't want anything to do with that nasty letter. I'll give it to you if you want to read it, but just promise me you'll never, and I mean never, bring it up with me." Angela was shocked by what he said. We started to understand Andrew's reasoning. She really wanted to remember her daughter how she was before her mistakes messed up her life. Maybe the letter has some real apologies and recognition of how hard her choice was, or maybe it's just Andrew just told her about his messed up situation with Courtney a few weeks ago. What if Courtney just had more anger and guilt to dump on Andrew? Courtney's mental state hasn't been the best, especially after facing Andrew. Angela was torn. Here comes the next chapter. I never thought my life could fall apart in just a minute. I trusted and loved her, and then I caught her with him in our bed at home. Her betrayal felt like a stab in the heart. I could feel the rage boiling inside me. She picked a wimp and now he's scared of me. This ain't just a story about cheating, it's about payback. My whole world got flipped upside down, now it's their turn to deal with the fallout. They wanted a secret fling, now they're gonna get called out in public. Today started like any other day, until 5:30 p.m. I woke up at 7 a.m. and helped the kids get ready for school. I made breakfast and packed their lunches. Tracy, who was dead tired from her late-night tennis game, had to be woken up to make sure James and Maddie caught the school bus on time. After saying goodbye to my kids, I left for work at 8 o'clock. I'm in charge of a group that handles the town's public projects. I finished work around 5 o'clock, like usual. I needed some cash for the weekend, so I went to the ATM. It took my card but didn't give me any money. There were no warnings or messages, it just kept my card. Man, looking back, I probably screwed up by trying to withdraw cash with my credit card. I was trying to get something nice for Maddie's birthday on Sunday, but then the stupid machine swallowed my card after the bank closed. So I had to head back home. When I got there, I saw Tracy's car wasn't in the driveway, which made me panic thinking Mom had left the kids alone again. I told her how much I hated that and asked her to give me a heads up if she was planning on going out after school, so I could come back early. Yo, I was about to open the door when I heard someone yell out, "Mr. David Brown." I looked around and said, "Yeah," then this dude in his 40s gave me a yellow envelope with "Slugged in" and "Pike" stamped on it. He said, "You've been served," and then bounced. I was hella confused, so I went inside and it felt all empty and weird. 2 minutes later, I realized my fam and all their stuff were gone, leaving only that yellow envelope on the table. I tore it open and saw the first paper. Yo, so I was going through some papers and saw a sticky note with "divorce" written on it. Didn't even bother reading it, just moved on to the next one. This one was even more confusing. Turns out I got a bounce from my house in 2 months before it sold. Like, what the heck? Then I come across another paper saying some dude named Michael Smith wants to adopt my kids. Seriously, what's the deal here? And the last paper straight up tells me I gotta stay at least 200 meters away from my wife, kids, and this Michael guy. Like, talk about a bombshell. I was totally shook when I got the message from Smith's house, like it felt like my whole world was crashing down. I couldn't wrap my head around it all at once, and at first, I was just too pissed to think straight. But then it hit me, my wife had left me for some stranger, taking the kids with her and even asking me to let him adopt them. She closed our joint bank accounts and everything. Yo, we had to sell our crib to get that cash flow. Turns out Tracy's partner in crime was Michael Smith, living over on Riverview Drive. I was feeling hella stupid because I had no clue what was going on. Tracy must have been scheming this for a minute and I didn't catch on. I always knew Tracy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, so I must have been trippin'. Looking back, there were probably signs I missed. Tracy got busted like 6 months back, but when I brought it up, she quickly changed her ways. Our relationship, which had been rocky before, suddenly got way better. It was like a complete 180, man. She came back acting all bold and fearless, not like the cautious wife I knew. Now she's a whole new person, being all brave and passionate in the bedroom. I couldn't help but smile thinking about our recent rendezvous. I couldn't help but wonder if she had tried all these new things with Mr. Smith before, but that didn't seem like Tracy. The thought gave me chills, knowing she always wanted to explore but couldn't because of her strict upbringing. Sadly, she lost respect for me 6 months ago, which is the worst part. The strange thing is, Tracy's really spicing things up in the bedroom now, trying out new stuff. Smith was getting bored of her always sticking to missionary. Oh, wait, Dave, you better keep a sense of humor for what's about to happen. I was still shocked trying to figure out my next move. People who haven't seen my latest psych evaluation might be surprised. My boss had the brilliant idea to have all his top employees checked out. I was relieved when the report said Mr. Brown doesn't always play by the rules. You know, those rules. I just saw M as a cowboy, getting stuff done and puttin' results above all else. So, at my yearly review, my boss praised me big time. He said whenever there's a tough job, he always turns to me. He even jots down in his diary how he thinks I'll tackle it and when I'll wrap it up. I gotta admit, I was pleasantly surprised. The guy ended up giving me the highest rating and we both had a good laugh about it. But in the end, it didn't really matter. I couldn't keep going with my education, so I had to drop out of engineering school to take care of my wife and kids. After half an hour, I parked near 12 Riverview Drive. Tracy's car was there, but no one was around. Smith lived in a nice neighborhood with other people. His name rang a bell. Could he be the guy from the TV ads? He's known for starring in his own commercials. Ads for the town supermarket were always changing, and if I recall correctly, he took over it by force a few years back. If my memory serves me right, I was in deep trouble. This dude was loaded with cash. My thoughts were cut off when the front door swung open and a guy came out and drove off in his car. I soon realized it was the same guy who had helped me out not too long ago. The yellow envelope caught my eye, so I ripped it open and checked out the divorce papers inside. Tracy seemed to be asking for everything, even the house and cars. She was after my money and even demanded child support. She wanted it all. I also noticed she didn't want me to see the kids at all. Tracy was always one to be competitive and wanted to win at all costs. Her actions in that court case were typical of her. I was pondering this when the door opened again 30 minutes later. A fancy woman in her early 40s was pushed out onto the porch, watching as a man in his 50s put a big suitcase next to her. He then went back inside, locking the door behind him and holding onto a yellow package. She was just standing there for a while, then she finally rolled her bag over to the gate and started walking towards me. Her face showed exactly how I was feeling inside, completely confused. When she got close to my car, I walked up ahead of her. She stopped a bit away, holding her mail and dragging her bag, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. She seemed so lost. When I showed her my envelope, I said the same thing. She looked at mine, then at hers, and just started crying uncontrollably. She stood there, frozen, while I put her suitcase in my car and held the door open for her. I drove off, taking a few turns to make sure no one was following us. It was weird, but knowing she was in trouble made me feel more secure and calm. Her eyes were red from crying, but still beautiful. I took a deep breath and decided to break the silence. "Hey, I'm Dave. I think my wife might know your husband," I said. She turned to me with a faint smile, despite looking upset. I could see a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I'm Wendy." "Is Tracy your wife?" she asked. "Yeah, so I saw them hanging out together last month and I thought we were getting things sorted. But then tonight she started crying again." I waited for her to calm down, but Tracy's betrayal didn't shock me as much as I thought it would. "Do you want me to take you home or somewhere else? Do you have any family or friends around here?" "I don't have any family here and Michael made my friends avoid me." "Are you hungry?" She shook her head. I checked my wallet and only had less than $50. I drove Wendy to a cheap restaurant I knew and we went in. Long story short, we talked about our lives. Man, I was only 32 when I tied the knot in my second year of college. The next year, we had a scare when the condoms didn't work right. Tracy, my wife, didn't want to abort, so I dropped out of school to help take care of our new family. Tracy didn't have a job, but I thought we had a solid marriage. Her laziness got on my nerves, but I get it, everyone's all about themselves nowadays. What really got to me was how Tracy acted like a dedicated mom in public, but at home, she couldn't care less and only focused on herself. I decided not to talk about the touchy subject. Instead, I always made sure to show love to my kids, whether we were out or at home, after my parents passed away. Being an only child, my family became everything to me. Wendy, who is 41, had a mother who left her and her father died from stress. She married Michael Smith, who was older, and they didn't have any kids. Michael refused to get a fertility test, blaming Wendy and pointing to his successful siblings. Wendy's inheritance was used to expand Michael's business. People told Wendy to check things out. She was using her card at an ATM near the creepy area when the thieves clearly planned and executed the robbery. We were confused and didn't know what to do next. Looking back, it was comforting to focus on someone else's problems during this tough time. Wendy wasn't ready to think about the future, so I suggested she crash at my big, empty house until she figured things out. I made it clear that I was just trying to help by offering her a place to stay. I didn't have any ulterior motives. After we got home with good intentions, I helped her settle into the guest room. Later, we had some wine together and I opened up about my worries of not spending enough time with my kids. She reassured me by holding my hand and also empathized with the struggles caused by my upbringing. When we talked about our shared concerns, it felt like a regular therapy session. After polishing off a bottle of wine, we came up with some helpful solutions. It seemed like their actions were meant to keep us down and unable to afford legal help. Tracy was dead set on winning over Wendy, but Wendy refused to split everything fair after our divorce. We couldn't come to a peaceful agreement. Tracy seemed nice though, like she could be there for us emotionally. We each went to our own rooms, but at least we had each other. The next day, we focused on lifting each other's spirits to not get too overwhelmed by our new situation. Whenever she was feeling low, I'd tell her funny stories to cheer her up. And when I was feeling down, she was so pretty, but also super shy, which made her even more intriguing. We were broke, so we had to save every penny. We got creative in the kitchen and watched what we spent so we could eat for a while. Surprisingly, we actually enjoyed shopping on a tight budget. It was a big change for Wendy, who was used to a fancy lifestyle since getting married. Mr. Smith and I talked about our future plans, but changed the subject when Saturday night got a bit too much, so we decided to chill and watch a movie together. Wendy was still knocked out the next day when John and Beth from Tracy's family unexpectedly popped by. I made them some coffee and we had a nice chat. Beth and I have always clicked, and I could tell she's been fond of me for a while now. Wendy has been flying solo ever since her husband ditched her for his secretary. One morning she walked into the kitchen in her robe just as we were making coffee. She said sorry and bounced out feeling awkward. Feeling a bit uneasy about her outfit, John gave me a look with a raised eyebrow and a cold frown. "It's the wife of the guy your daughter is living with. He kicked her out last Friday, the same day we met. I invited her to stay with me because she had nowhere else to go. Your kid is causing trouble for more than just me, sorry Dave." Tracy's mom wanted to come too, but she was too embarrassed. "We know about Tracy's behavior towards you, and I want you to know that I'm really mad at her. I almost spilled the beans. Man, she's really trying to screw us over, you know how it is with grandkids and all. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Dad. I just don't get why she's pulling this crap, trying to take all the money in the house." I tried to explain it to my dad, who looked shocked by what I was saying. His eyes were wide, like he was hearing about the problem for the first time. "So she's just soaking it all in." He asked for more details about my bank account. "My accounts got shut down and now I'm broke. She gave me papers to get out of the house and also said I can't see my kids." When John heard this, he was shocked and couldn't even look at me. "I feel bad for you, Dave. She's really mean, but I can help you out. Yesterday, she told her mom she wants to leave because she thinks you've reached your limit and she wants more. She thinks being with a rich guy will give her everything she wants. He's over 50 and man, the way she talks about him, it's like she ain't really feeling him. If I was him, I'd watch my back. I think she's gonna marry him and then dip with all his cash. I don't know how she ended up like her dad, that's crazy. I had to drop out of college 'cause she wanted to keep her first kid. He told me I'd be in a better position if I kept going, but now I'm stuck at the bottom." John just shrugged when I asked him, "Why did you bring the kids' dad here? We both know the deal. She's not really the motherly type. Why not just take the money and leave me with my kids?" "I'm not sure, son," he said. Beth looked shocked by her father's comment but stayed quiet, clearly embarrassed. John apologized and left after shaking my hand. I asked him to give my daughter a birthday hug for me. Beth hugged me and said she'd be back in an hour. It was all pretty interesting. Wendy and I were having brunch when Tracy's two friends came over last night. They saw Tracy with an older man at a restaurant. And we were like, totally interested when Wendy spilled the tea about what happened. I gave my 2 cents on the situation, but they were all pissed off at Tracy for ditching with the kids. They could tell Tracy was faking being all nice when people were around. Just as we finished telling the story, Tracy's friend walked in and we had to fill her in. She was just as shocked as the rest of us. But before we could finish, Beth came back and pulled me aside, handing me an envelope with 1000 in it. "Here you go, Dave." Beth told me to take it as a way to make up for my bad behavior, but I stubbornly refused at first, trying to be proud. In the end, I had to take it because I really needed it. I thanked her for it. Also, I have to let you know that Dad didn't tell you the whole truth. Tracy came over yesterday and left the kids with us. She spilled almost everything to us, and I managed to get the rest of the information from her later. Dave, I have to warn you, she's in a tough spot right now. He wanted the cash and the big house. He planned to use the money to convince you to agree to a divorce and let him adopt your kids. He doesn't have any kids of his own and wants someone to inherit his money. Your ex-wife has convinced him that she wants to have a baby with him after the divorce. Once he's gone, she'll go back to her old life. If you're patient, Dave, I think she'll stop caring for Jimmy and Maddie and give them back to you. I looked at Beth in shock. Huh. What she said made sense, even if she was being harsh and indifferent. He's got a hot young wife, so it's no surprise he's eyeing Tracy, even though she's nothing special. The idea of having a wife who can pop out kids easily obviously appeals to him. But I couldn't believe it when Beth said Tracy had serious health issues during both pregnancies and had to have a C-section for her second kid. She even had her uterus removed during the same surgery and didn't tell her family about it. Man, my wife has been acting real sneaky lately, especially with her new man. Did Tracy seem guilty when she talked to you, Beth? She's definitely feeling bad about hurting you, Dave. She tried to hide it, but I could tell it was really getting to her. She knows she's hurting a decent guy, but that's not stopping her. Beth, why are you helping me out? It's the right thing to do. My sister used to bully me when we were kids, so what she's doing to you is just not cool. It really bothers me. I know what it feels like to be left hanging, so I get where you're coming from. You had my back when I messed up, not Tracy. Now it's my turn to help you out, Dave. I really care about you and can't stand to see you getting walked all over. Thanks, Beth. I'm at a loss for words and I can't make any guarantees, so don't stress. I'm not trying to hook up with you, that would be super weird. Plus, I've been seeing someone for a month now and things are going well. I'm happy for you, Beth. You've always been my favorite family member. Take care. Hey Dave, thanks for the partnership. I promise to have your back in any way I can. Think of me as your right-hand woman. Beth left after we hugged it out. I went back to hanging with our friends. By the end of the day, we had filled in 3 more pals over the phone about what went down. Their kind words and support really lifted our spirits. We talked about what could happen next after we finished making dinner together. But before we dug in, I took $400 from Beth's stash and gave Wendy $200. Then I showed her where I stashed the cash. Yo, Beth just gave me some cash to hold me over till I get paid again. I told Wendy what Beth said earlier, and she wasn't even shocked. She mentioned how her marriage is struggling because they don't have kids. Wendy pointed out that I'm always down at this time of night. I realized it's already 8:30 p.m. I always read bedtime stories to my kids. When my wife asked me what we should do, I saw a tear in her eye. I told her that taking care of our children is my top priority. I can't leave them with such untrustworthy people. We need to find a way to help them, even if it means getting the money back. I'm not sure if I want revenge, but I can't stand the idea of letting them off the hook. What do you think, Wendy? Wendy's face turned serious when he mentioned divorce and splitting up. Our property split evenly would have been fine, but now I'm feeling awkward. I really want to see him pay, Dave, she said firmly. I nodded to show her that I agreed with her. Okay, we both know what we want. Let's figure out how to make it happen. We spent the next few hours brainstorming ways to raise money to hire lawyers, considering a lot of options before ruling them out. Our conversations were serious and focused on following the rules and finding fair ways to win, but it didn't help us. Feeling stuck, I turned to Wendy and asked about money. They moved to town 2 years ago and blew all their savings on a house and a store. Later, he borrowed $2.5 million to expand his business, using his store, home, and boat as collateral. This seemed like a possible weakness we could use to our advantage. If we put pressure on his business, we might be able to work out better arrangements for me to see my kids. My kids were more important to me than money. Wendy wanted to totally ruin the guy's business, but I was worried about messing up someone's job even though he's a jerk. We stayed up super late on Sunday and the next day at work I told my boss about the situation. He helped me out by letting me take time off and giving me my vacation days in advance. I had a hard time focusing on my usual tasks all day and I missed my kids. In the afternoon, I hung out with my coworkers from the finance and legal departments. Let me introduce you to them. Some of them are really cool. You know how some people hate on us local government workers? Yeah, we may not make bank, but we got each other's backs. When we had extra road material, we used it for our driveways since none of us had gravel ones. By the end of the day, I even picked up some knowledge about business finance and legal stuff. Wendy and I chatted about our day when we got home. She cooked dinner after looking for a job because she used to be a personal assistant. We were chilling after cleaning up when a phone call and an unexpected visitor came and changed my life at 7:30 p.m. The phone rang and I answered, "Daddy, where are you?" Maddie's voice came through, "I'm at home, love." I replied with a lump in my throat. "I don't like it here, Daddy, please." Tracy's voice interrupted, "Who are you talking to?" The call ended. Wendy saw the distress on my face and asked, "What's going on?" Someone called me and I shouted mad before heading towards the door. Wendy tried to stop me, but she's only 5 feet 2 inches and I'm 6 feet 1 inch. "Stop, Dave, that's what they want. They want you to get in trouble for breaking the rules." "Please don't," she said, making me pause. Instead of leaving, I decided to go upstairs to my room and be alone to sort out my feelings. I'm not sure how much time went by, but then I heard a soft knock on the door. Wendy came in with 3 children's books and asked, "Could you read to me?" She asked me for a story, but I didn't say anything. I just stared at her and then at the books. I moved over to make space for her to lie down next to me. I picked the book that Maddie likes the most and started reading. When I finished, I felt calm again. I kissed Wendy's forehead, just like I always did with Maddie. She smiled back at me. I've been trying to avoid thinking too much about my kids. The idea of them not being with me or living in different homes was too much to handle. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I was surprised to see Sophia, not Sophie. Standing at the door was Tracy's bestie, and we've always gotten along well. I let her in and introduced her to Wendy. Sophia seemed anxious and wouldn't make eye contact during our chat. She said sorry to me, explaining Tracy had spilled the beans about her plans ahead of time, causing her to distance herself for the last 5 months. She asked me to keep her secret on the down low, but I tried to convince her otherwise. She's stubborn though. I could tell she was planning to leave the marriage. So, I might have to fight for custody of the kids. As I was watching her, I could tell she was feeling guilty about how she acted. At first, I saw her as the enemy and had no sympathy for her. But then I realized she could be a good source of info. Guilt can make people do the right thing. I just needed to steer her in the right direction. It's all good. "Hey Sophia, I get how tough it must have been for you." "Thanks, Dave. You know she froze our accounts and left me broke, right?" "Yeah, when I saw her earlier and she was kind of bragging about it, not exactly proudly but more like she was trying to act tough. Sophia thinks she feels really bad about how she treated you." Finally, she looked at me and said, "Dave, I never believed what she said about you hurting the kids. I've seen how you and her handled James and Maddie, and I know you wouldn't do that." I was shocked and asked, "What do you mean?" She said that she reported you to child services for hurting the kids, but they couldn't find any evidence to back it up. "I'm gonna sue her ass because she had no proof for her lies and now there's a restraining order against her." Can you believe she was spreading lies about me being a bad mom? My friends could tell I was pissed as I went through all the emotions. But once I calmed down, I knew exactly what I had to do next. If she wants to play dirty, I'll play dirty too. I'm ready to fight back with any sneaky strategy one need to. To improve my creativity, I was speechless for a while. That lady is ready to do whatever it takes to win. I never hurt my kids. I can tell by your face, Dave, that something didn't sound right when she said it. Most dads I know hang out with their buddies at bars or go fishing.